This video will cover the replacement of resin material in the GSXF30H GE water softener, 30,000 grain, cabinet style, pretty typical for what you get out of Home Depot, Lowe's, etc. This unit was installed in 2008. This video is in July of 2014. We noticed about 6 months ago starting a reduction in water flow, and water didn't seem as slippery as it normally did, so it's taken a while for me to get around to doing the research, but apparently the chlorinated water here in Largo, Florida has ruined the resin beads and they require replacement. So this video is going to cover that, since I couldn't find one that explained how to do that to my satisfaction. So moving on to removing the upper covers. Removal of the upper covers is fairly simple. Lift up the this cover and remove it. Then we have two tabs on either side of the upper head area. Pull these out and tilt it forward and disengage it to remove these. That exposes your control panel and the valve head, which is what we need to remove to gain access to the resins to change those out. Part of the procedure for doing all this is to remove water pressure from the valve and the unit itself, and so the recommended way it was to turn off the water supply to the house, open a valve, open a drain, which I'll use over in the sink there, and then once that water pressure is off, you can begin disconnecting the bypass valve system from the valve head, and by doing what we're doing, it removes pressure from all of that, so that you can then safely remove this without having water spraying all over the place. Once you've taken off the water pressure by turning off the valve and opening up a faucet, I would suggest removing this control panel at least out of the way. You have a couple of different wires that will need to be removed so that you can, pull the valve off, or at least I think you will. One of them is this sensor here. There's a turbine that spins in here that calculates how much water flow has gone through, which tells the water softener when to recharge itself. And then there's also a couple of power clips here to the valve, or to that sensor as well, that talks to the computer in here. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these and get ready to disconnect all of this. Removing the sensor, there are two tabs, one on either side. You simply lift these up and remove this out, and this is the sensor that counts the revolutions of the turbine that's inside this part of the tube. And then this here is simply pull these straight off and move those out of the way. There's no way those can go in incorrectly, so you really don't have to worry about marking them at all. Alright, our next step, and I'm doing this kind of on my own, so I may or may not have to reshuffle these, but you're going to have to disconnect this drain tube from the venturi. This venturi is what provides the suction to draw the brine into the resin tank, and it's a separate cleaning process to make sure that that is cleaned out so that it does draw the brine properly and get you the recharge capacity that you're looking for. So I'm going to, unscrew this hose out of here just to get it out of the way, and then we have a small hose clamp here. This is the discharge tube that they use to, after the brine is drawn into the resin tank, and then when it flushes out, everything goes out this discharge hose and goes into your to your drain system. You want to be careful when you do this because it's a plastic housing here. So, of course, now that I'm looking at it, I realize that there is a clip that could have allowed me to disconnect it out of there, but I'm going to stick with the hose. Seems simpler than messing with these clips. Okay, the final step, we've got to disconnect the bypass tube, or the bypass valve, from the valve head. Last two things are these C-clips. I have found that if you look right here, you'll see that there's a groove cut into this plastic housing. If you work a flat tip screwdriver up underneath there, you can raise this one end of the clip, which then lets you lift the center section out, and then by prying underneath on the other end of this, you can bring it up and out. Okay, so do that for both, and then alright, so we're now ready to remove the valve head from the resin tank. Going to have to remove the bypass valve from the valve head. So after you've removed those two C-clips that I described earlier, you simply pull this out. You will get some water leakage that comes out, but it's not excessive, maybe 2 cups at the most, if everything is going the way it's going for me. Okay, then you have 2 clamps, one on either side of 2 circular plastic clamps, and it's you just put your thumb underneath this here and pop it off. Same thing on this side, and that loosens and allows you to remove the clamp from the valve. Okay. So this is what you wind up with, is a pair of these and a pair of these clamps. Okay, so if everything is going the way it should go, all I should have to do now is raise this valve up off the top. And here we go. What you're seeing now is the top basket of your distribution tube. And it's supposed to come off of the valve. Okay, and here's the actual distribution tube, and this is the top basket. And when you pop this up off that, and there is your valve off the top of the distribution tube, which you can just lay it off to the side. And then again, this is the distribution tube. This is your top basket. It has small little slits that are supposed to allow water flow through and keep the resin beads from migrating into your water system. This upper basket, from what I've been told about in the online forums, looks pretty clean, and there's an O-ring down there that goes on the top of this distribution tube that I need to remember not to lose, and that will go up inside here in the bottom of your valve head. Okay, so now it's going to be a very time-consuming process of trying to get a vacuum in here, because what I'm going to be doing today is replacing the resins, no matter what they look like. It's been 8 years, and supposedly that's about as long as one could expect these resins to last and work properly in a chlorinated city water environment, which we have here in Largo, Florida. So the tank is full of water, and you can see the yellowish resin beads down inside. Let me just do this. so that you can see what I'm talking about. So so we've got the the distribution tube here, and then the it's full of water, and then down inside the yellowish resin beads. So what I'm going to be doing here is removing this distribution tube and the lower basket, which I'm assuming looked very similar to that, out of the resin bed completely, and then we'll see what the bottom one looks like. I would expect that one to be clogged, which would result in the low water pressure that we've received over the last several months. And hopefully the removal of these resin beads will show that they are in fact deteriorated and need to be replaced. So let me move on with the removal of the distribution tube. Now this thing's about 4 feet long, so hopefully I can get it to pull all the way out without banging into too much stuff here. But there is resistance as you pull up, because you're pulling the basket, the bottom basket, through the resin bed, but all it requires is steady upward pull. And here we go. Here's the bottom basket that's coming out, and yeah, what I'm seeing is resin that is supposedly when you get these resin beads, if they deteriorate, you can roll them in your fingers and they feel all mushy. Alrighty, in the finest handyman tradition, I have a nice rigid no brand plug here, but I've had it for about 8 years and it's worked like a champ forever, so I recommend rigid. A rigid shop vac set up to draw water, fluids, and slushy stuff, such as the resin in the resin tank. And again, in the finest handyman tradition, I have jury-rigged a smaller diameter hose from a older and cheaper shop vac that I used to have, so that I can then wand down in here and remove the material from the tank. So I'm going to go ahead and fire up the very noisy shop vac, and let's see what happens. Alrighty, we've take a quick break here from the shop vacuuming and see if I can show you what the resins look like in the tank. Now, there was about 3 inches of water, maybe, just sort of floating on top, and then there's the resin beads themselves. And I have no idea what this is supposed to look like, but there appears to be striations, big word, or clumps or sections that are looking kind of weird, lumpy, almost like fat, tallow kind of thing in there. I have no idea if that's a direct result of the degradation and but it's coming out slowly and but without any trouble. So I'm just wanted to show you what it looks like inside the tank as we're removing the old stuff. As you can see, it goes quite a ways down, and I've been working on it for about 5 minutes now. Just taking my time. So far, no problem. Alright, so here we have the tank. It's now been emptied. It took me about 10 minutes, I guess, of slowly sucking that stuff out, and then I had to wash a little water around the from the top to get the last of it to go down to the bottom, and then sit down there. Okay, so we're ready to move on to, I guess, reinstalling the distribution tube, baskets, etc., and then the time-consuming process of putting in the new resin. Alright, I wanted to make sure that I talked about the distribution tube, or DT as a lot of these guys in the business call it. Mine has a basket that is clamped onto the end so it doesn't come off, but I did examine it very closely, make sure that none of the little slots in the plastic are clogged. I did notice by looking down inside this tube that there appeared to be some resin goo down in the bottom, so I shot water down through here, kind of banged this end of it a little bit to loosen things up, flushed it again back through here, and just cleaning everything out, and it seemed to get rid of it quite nicely. I've seen some that recommend just going out and buying a new one. I've seen some real sexy looking ones that are a much bigger kind of a basket thing that goes around the entire bottom of your tank. I'm not going to go that route. I'm going to go ahead and put this one right back in. One thing that they all absolutely recommend that you do to ensure any future problems is, after you put the tube back inside your resin tank, the next thing you need to do is put some duct tape or something over the end of this tube so that no resin beads get back down inside here, because you're going to be filling the resin tank right around this tube, and the end of it's going to be just right there, and you don't want any resin beads getting inside this tube to cause you problems in the future. So remember, clean this one out, put it back in, tape this covered, then start putting resin beads back in through the opening. Okay? As mentioned earlier, cleaning this all out, I'm going to slide this back inside, and as you can see, this tube is going to be right there. So again, next step for me will be to put a piece of some duct tape over this to prevent any resin beads from getting down inside. The resin beads, once they go in here, are not going to be anywhere near the actual opening here, so you don't have to just use one little piece of duct tape. Whatever you feel you need to make sure you don't get any resin beads down that distribution tube is all you need to worry about at this point. To make sure that it stays relatively centered as I'm filling it, I'm going to use the long-handled screwdriver to kind of keep it in position and press on. Alrighty then. Took about a good 10 to 15 minutes, I guess, total to put all the resin beads in there, make sure that the distribution tube stayed centered, and again, it's got to be all the way down to the bottom so that the valve will fit on it and mate up to this. Now we're going to reinstall our top basket, which slips down over this and will seat just like so. And then we've got this last O-ring that goes over this, and then the valve on top of that. And ta-da! Everything seems to fit properly. Okay? So now we're going to reinstall these two clamp bands. Now all I have to do is remember how to do that. Okay. should have put the other one on. Remember, the tabs are going to go in the opposite directions as you put these clamps on. Whew. That's it. Then of course we're going to reinstall our wiring harness and our impeller sensor. Install this hose here. And of course we have our two C-clips that have to be reinstalled on the inlet and outlet sides. Okay, make sure all three ends are snapped in. There we go. Got to make sure this is all the way in there. Engaged, engaged, and engaged. Okay, last but not least, we have our, oops, where's that little clamp? We have our little, of course this one is very important that you get it completely on and very tightly secured, because this is the one where you get lots of pressure that when the valve assembly here begins its regeneration process, that's when this thing is going to be under a lot of pressure getting rid of the brine solution. Okay? Install this here. According to the instructions that come with the unit, to flush air from the softener and test your installation for leaks, the first thing you're going to do is open two cold water faucets nearby the softener, and then open the house water valve wide open. Then you're going to slowly place the bypass valve in service, okay, exactly as follows. Keep the water, the soft water, cold water faucets that are running now, you can hear one in the background, keep those both open. Slowly pull or slide this out, and you do this pausing several times to allow the softener to pressurize slowly. Okay, I am assuming that what it's doing is filling the resin tank as we speak. Okay, opening it a little more. Okay, you're going to do this process, you're going to take about 3 minutes to slowly open this bypass valve to fully pressurize the unit, and then even while the cold water valves are still running full blast, you're going to then open a hot water faucet. See, I just heard air coming through the cold water faucets right there. So again, we're going to wait for a little while, and then we will move the bypass valve all the way open, and then we're going to open a hot faucet. Opening a little more, and we'll come back here in just a bit. Alright, about 3.5 minutes have passed. Haven't heard any more air coming through the cold water faucet that's running over here in the sink in the garage. So now I'm going to go over and open up a hot water faucet, and then after that 1 minute of having the hot water open, we close the hot water off, and then we close off the cold water and make sure that we don't have any leaks. The process of repressurizing the softener has gone well. Everything seems to be just fine. I have no leaks anywhere from any of the connections. But as part of this, I wanted to talk about the venturi here. This is something that we are supposed to do on a regular basis to ensure that whatever grunge is coming through gets trapped in here as part of the regeneration process. So as long as this is not regenerating, in other words, as long as this valve is not moving through the steps to run the brine in and out and to flush, etc., etc., there should be no pressure on this, which means you can do this, just during the day whenever you need to do something like that. Okay? So it's a relatively simple. You just unscrew this. This is only supposed to be hand tight. And then you have a series of O-rings and little discs and everything down here that you just need to be very careful that you put everything back in the same order that you took it out. Okay? The main thing you're looking for is to ensure that this is clear, and then again in this particular model there's a second set of discs and another small little tiny version of this down inside. And again, it's all about keeping it in the same order as you take it out and as you put it back. There's a little cutout and a little guide right here so that you don't get anything misaligned as you put it back together. Okay? And just move everything right back into position after you clean it. And again, there's a cutout for this as well to get it back in position. Once you've got it all back, and you know there's no blockage in your venturi, just hand tighten. That's it. No more than that. Okay? Also, during the entire process of removing this valve, doing all that stuff, after I disconnected this, I put this in the bypass position, meaning I pushed it in, which means water was routed directly from coming in to the house, going back into the house plumbing, so that the rest of the house had water pressure as I was doing this whole resin replacement process. So just in case you're worried about that, as long as you have a good functional bypass valve, you should be able to do everything that I'm going to do to this with house water going everywhere else for toilet flushing and etc., etc. Okay? But it will be, of course, hard water versus softened water that went through here. Okay? As the final step to putting this completely back in service, you're supposed to either manually set your valve system to a backwash setting, which will supposedly just flush out whatever little bits and pieces, and I guess resettle the rebed, as they say, the resins. Or you can just recharge the whole bloody thing and be done with it, which is, of course, a much simpler proposition on this particular softener. So, with that said, and since I've been at this now for about 3 hours or so, I'm going to keep it simple and just do the manual regeneration, which on this you do it by pressing and holding, and it's begun its recharge. So now I'm going to go have some lunch and and hopefully enjoy better water pressure and soft water when it's all over with. Hope this has been helpful to you, and keep doing it yourself.